Okay, we're live. Welcome everyone to the Asheville City Council meeting and to it being in the morning, which is different. We originally scheduled this meeting in the morning because we were going to participate in the point in time count tonight, which also got postponed. So anyway, we're all just adjusting. So welcome. If you could just take a moment to silence your cell phones. If you wanted to sign up to speak during the meeting, you can step out on the hall at any time and sign up, and it will populate on the screens in front of us. And I did want to mention that Sage Turner's not able to be with us today. She's traveling back from wherever she is to Asheville, and she is not able to get here quite yet. As people know, traveling right now is a little bit challenging. Okay, if you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As is our newer tradition, I'm going to read our chamber decorum statement. I feel like already having a meeting in the morning just makes the decorum already very pleasant, but I'm going to read it nonetheless. Members of the public attending council meetings or addressing the council shall abide by the following rules. Everyone shall follow the instructions of the mayor or any other presiding officer or official and shall refrain from impeding or interrupting the conduct of business. This shall include, but not be limited to, clapping, yelling, or other audio expressions of approval or disapproval of comments made during the meeting. Persons addressing the council are expected to observe the decorum of the chamber, to be respectful of the council and the public, to refrain from the use of profanity or foul language, to refrain from personal attacks and commentary on candidates for political office, and to refrain from making disclosures prohibited by the Personnel Privacy Act with respect to any city employee. Failure to abide by these rules may subject you to removal from the council chamber. All right, thank you. Our first item of business. Do you want me to do the budget motion at the top?
Yes, please.
At the top, okay.
The amendment to the agenda, please.
All right, sorry, I'm just reading Maggie's note to me here, which says, ask for a motion and second to amend agenda to add a motion to amend budget schedule to move budget public comment from February 10th to February 24th. Brief explanation, everybody, but do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. So as I mentioned, the point in time count has been moved, and it has been moved to February 10th, which means our February 10th meeting will take place again in the morning. And we wanted to make our first available opportunity for general public comment on the budget to be during an evening meeting. So that will happen on February 24th. There will, of course, be other opportunities to comment on the budget, and of course, anyone can comment on the budget at any time at any meeting if they wish. So we have that motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we have an amended agenda, but now I am going to read our one proclamation for today, and we have some folks who are here for the International Holocaust Remembrance Day Proclamation, and if you are, please join me down at the lectern, or podium, whatever it's called. First, I'll read the proclamation, and then if you want to say a few words. Whereas the United Nations has declared January 27th as International Holocaust Remembrance Day, a solemn occasion to honor the memory of 6 million Jews murdered in the Holocaust and millions of other innocent victims who perished for failing to conform to Nazi ideology. And whereas we also honor the strength and resilience of the millions who survived Nazi persecution, enduring unimaginable trauma and loss, including many who have recorded their personal testimony in books, videos, and personal diaries. And whereas we pay tribute to the courageous individuals, groups, and countries, both Jewish and non-Jewish, who resisted physically and spiritually to stand against injustice and protect those targeted for extermination. And whereas we remember that the Holocaust didn't start with gas chambers, it began with the erosion of rights and legal protections coupled with state-sponsored propaganda, bigotry, and dehumanization targeting Jews and others, and which escalated to mass murder and genocide. And whereas we unequivocally denounce all forms of discrimination, violence, murder, and genocide against any people, and reaffirm our condemnation of anti-Semitism, racism, and any form of bigotry directed at culturally, politically, socially, or ethnically distinctive communities. And whereas we value a community where diverse culture and religious traditions are honored and woven into the rich fabric of community life. And whereas on this International Holocaust Remembrance Day, we pledge our shared responsibility to build communities built upon respect and mutual understanding so that never again is not a promise, but a lived reality for generations to come. Now therefore I, Esther Mannheimer, Mayor of the City of Asheville, do hereby proclaim January 27, 2026 as International Holocaust Remembrance Day in the City of Asheville and encourage all residents to commit themselves to the creation of a world that is safe, inclusive, and welcoming to all. Let the lessons of the Holocaust guide us as we foster empathy and justice, speak out against hate in every form, and uphold the dignity of human rights of every human being.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor Esther. I feel like I can call you on first name basis since I've known you forever, and council members. I am Alan Baumgarten, and I'm a stand-in for accepting this proclamation from Dr. Walter Ziffer. Many of us know Dr. Ziffer, who's now elderly, 98, excuse me, and he just felt he couldn't make it out in this weather and in his circumstances. I am the child of Holocaust survivors, which is why Dr. Ziffer asked that I take this opportunity to thank you for this proclamation. My father, Henry Baumgarten, was from Erfurt, Germany. He was an orphan, but his sister had the wisdom to send him out of Germany after Kristallnacht. And he was in Denmark going to school, where he was captured by the Germans in 42 and taken by transport to Theresienstadt in Czechoslovakia, where he survived, doing an appendectomy in the kitchen. And my mother was from Tisza-Oilak in a small shtetl town in Hungary. She was 14 years old when she was rounded up, transported to a ghetto, ultimately to Auschwitz-Birkenau, and then to various work camps in Estonia and Latvia, and ultimately to Bergen-Belsen, where, when they were trying to consolidate towards the end of the war, survived there through the March of Death. So I feel I can adequately represent our community, Congregation Beth Israel, in accepting this proclamation. I want to say thank you.
On behalf of the Asheville JCC, I also would like to thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, next item is our consent agenda. Do I have questions, comments, or a motion to adopt our consent agenda? We do have some folks to sign up, who have signed up to speak under the consent agenda, but first I'll entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let me we've got 3 people signed up to speak under our consent agenda. You'll have 3 minutes to speak unless you have folks ceding their time to you, such as our first speaker. Our first speaker is Welker Taylor, and while Welker's coming forward, those who have ceded their time to Welker, just please raise your hand. Thank you very much. You'll have 10 minutes to speak, and everyone, please just watch the lights on the lectern. Green means go, orange means you're getting close to stop, and red means stop. So, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Welker Taylor. I'm the president of the Asheville Firefighters Association, Local 332 of the International Association of Firefighters. So before you take this vote to change the city's ordinance in Section I of the consent agenda regarding representation during the grievance process, I just wanted to say a huge thank you. As most of you probably know, being a public sector union in North Carolina is not an easy task. For the first 7 years of my own career, I was lucky enough to work in a state where our ability as firefighters to collectively bargain was taken for granted, by me included. We figured out our goals, we went to the table with fire and city admin, and we worked out a deal. It certainly wasn't always easy, but it was well-established ground, and it was a clear process for us to come up with a compromise. I assume most of you probably know about this, but I'll touch on it just for a second for anyone who doesn't. The law that forbids public sector employees from the right to collectively bargain was passed by the North Carolina General Assembly in 1959. And it was a response to the Teamsters attempting to organize Charlotte police officers. Of course, it wasn't quite as simple as a state attempting to curb the rights of organized labor. This was the South in the 1950s. North Carolina General Statute 95-98 was about keeping black and white workers from organizing together at their public sector workplaces. It was, and still is, Jim Crow tactics. I hope to keep working class black North Carolinians from taking another step forward in their road towards prosperity and dignity. The fact that North Carolina, one of only 2 states in the country, allows this ban to continue to this day is frankly disgusting. Therefore, whenever a city can acknowledge the importance of organized labor, even in a place like North Carolina, that's a huge step away from that past. And while we still may be years or decades away from the General Assembly repealing the ban, you, the elected officials of Asheville, passing this change in the ordinance is a beautiful step in the right direction. Maybe you think I'm being over the top saying all this, but that's truly what it represents to me and us in the Firefighters Association. So thank you for hearing us, for acting quickly, and for ensuring our right to union representation during the grievance process. I also, before I finish, just want to remind everyone why this grievance ordinance change arose in the first place. June of last year, you all voted to give a 3% raise to all fire employees, and we appreciated your support, especially on the heels of Helene. We recognize it was a difficult decision that was hard to defend. That being said, we all discovered this December that 3% raise was not applied how you or I thought it would be. Our 13 newest firefighters, who started less than a week after the new budget took effect, were denied the raise, and they were left at the old fiscal year's rate. We were told that this was a step to keep from worsening the already bad compression that exists within the fire department's ranks, taking away instead of adding. When I spoke with you all about this issue at the beginning of December, it seemed cut and dried. Your intention was for all city employees, current or future, to receive that 3% increase. But between learning of the discrepancy and having those conversations, you got word from the city that we're facing a potential $30 million budget gap. That's a big number, and understandably, it makes supporting a mid-year adjustment to compensation, even an adjustment that is in line with the intentions of last year's budget, seems scary. I get that, and I'm not trying to minimize the choice you have to make. But my job is to represent the Asheville firefighters and to organize their voices and to advocate best I can. So while I understand and respect your concerns, I still think the right thing to do is to fix the pay of these 13 rookie firefighters. They're our most vulnerable. They still make $17.27 an hour. They still work 832 more hours than all other city employees. These new firefighters, like all other Asheville firefighters, left work this past weekend, told by the chief to be prepared for a situation like Helene. They prepared to work even more hours than the 40% extra we already work. They were told to prepare to, or they're potentially forced to stay on shift like we did during Helene, forced to go out in the storm while other city employees were told to stay home. Can you imagine heading to work this past weekend or on the morning of September 27th, 2024, and you genuinely weren't sure when you were going to see your family again? Or you weren't sure how your own house was going to be? Not sure if you'd get a chance to rest at all or eat at all or have a moment to breathe. And then do all that for $17 an hour. The least we can do to welcome these new employees is getting this one little thing right for them. It's $1,500 per person. That's $18,000 over an entire year to show these rookie firefighters that you and the whole city gets it, that you see them, you see their sacrifice and get it. There will nearly always be understandable reasons for not doing the right thing. But paying these firefighters, these young firefighters, what they're owed, the same money that you already thought you had voted to pay them, is the right thing to do. None of us took this job to get rich. We all knew that going into it. But we certainly didn't take the job to get poor either. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. The next person signed up to speak is Scott Mullins.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I rise in strong support of the rule change, the ordinance change, which will allow a labor representative to accompany a grieving employee during their grievance hearing. As a former Asheville fire captain, president of this local, and current state president of the Professional Firefighters and Paramedics, I'm proud of this council's willingness to change the ordinance. The reason this is a big push right now is because of how the fire department is deciding to handle grievances up to this point. You know, as President Taylor said, you know, this goes back to the 1950s. Asheville Civil Service protections came about to get rid of the good old boy system of doing things, and it was a great move for labor, and it continues to be a strength of local affiliates like Asheville across the state. For decades, Local 332 has participated in grievance hearings at every level of the process, including meetings with the chief. That participation was never just a courtesy. It was a recognition of the fundamental role that unions play in protecting members' rights and ensuring fair, consistent application of policy. Union representation during grievances has long been an established practice, an essential part of functional labor management relations, something that this council has viewed important over the years that they've been serving. So to now deny that representation, especially in a group grievance involving clear loss of benefits, is not just a procedural change, it is a giant step backwards. And I applaud this council for its willingness to move forward and take action to correct the issue. So I applaud you, Mayor and Council, as you continue to raise the standard on how city councils should treat their employees. You continue to be one of the best in the state of North Carolina for how you treat them. And I also support the 3% increase for the lowest paid group of firefighters. It's crucial to keeping them here, and it shows that you care and support what they do on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Casey Gilbert.
Good morning, Mayor, Council, City Manager. I'm Casey Gilbert, Vice President of Public Policy for the Asheville Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here this morning to thank Council for supporting business recovery. I also want to thank the Economy Recovery Board and the PED Committee for their votes of confidence. When we say businesses, we're talking about our friends, we're talking about our neighbors, we're talking about the makers, the doers, and the dreamers in this community. And so I want to thank you for lighting a candle of hope. I want to thank the staff, James, Rachel, Charlie, Elma, so many others, and for James's work on the CDBG DR action plan. Oh my gosh, he got that across the finish line in no time, and that's why we're here today. I want to highlight the process of stakeholder engagement. So many organizations were involved in getting us to where we are today. The Asheville Buncombe Hotel Association, Arts AVL, Asheville Downtown Improvement District, Recovery Leadership Alliance, the Chamber of Commerce, SBTDC, Biltmore Village Association, Explore Asheville, RadBiz, Go Local Asheville, yeah, Sherry, Institute Capital, Mountain Biz Works, The People's Place, YMI Cultural Center, Asheville Downtown Association, and the West Asheville Business Association. I list all of these to highlight that this is an example of collaboration, it's an example of public-private partnership, and it's an example of the community coming together. I started 6 weeks before Helene, and Kit, our CEO, said we were gonna raise $1 million in business grants, and we did. And the city and the county chipped in, as did Mountain BizWorks, and together we raised $4 million for Buncombe County. And now we have $15 million for Asheville. It's going to be transformative, and it's gonna help us retain and grow our businesses, so thank you. And while I'm up here, I also wanna thank you for your support of the Asheville Downtown Improvement District. The Chamber's been providing governance and financial management support for this organization. I'm proud and honored to be a part of it, especially as a believer in improvement districts as an economic development tool and in the power of placemaking. On my way into work this morning, I saw an ambassador with his cart. It's 8 degrees out, okay, y'all? So they are committed to doing the work, and I want to thank you for your continued support of this endeavor. So just a big gratitude fest this morning, so thank you all so much.
Thank you. Council, we don't have anyone else signed up to speak under consent, and we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. I do want to say that I appreciate the firefighters coming out today and speaking on consent. I'm glad we were able to work quickly with our new city manager to put the change or clarification to the ordinance regarding representation and a grievance hearing on our agenda. So thank you for working with folks to get that on the agenda quickly. With regard to the pay issue that we're still grappling with, and which is the subject of the grievance, the hearing that will go forward. Right before this meeting started, council had to sign a letter to the local government commission because, in part, our fund balance has decreased, and we are required to report that and acknowledge, the electeds have to acknowledge that fact and submit that information to the local government commission. And unfortunately, with the budget constraints that we're facing, any increase to personnel salaries mid-year would be a budget amendment that would we would be using fund balance, additional fund balance, which would decrease our fund balance more. So I think I speak for all of council in saying we wholeheartedly believe that this funding is important for our employees and fire and as well as the other employees that have come on board since July 1. And I'm regretful that our budget process last year wasn't clear that we were giving raises and not structurally changing the pay scale at the same time. So a lot to work through, and I know our manager has met and will meet with firefighter representatives and look at our fiscal situation and help us navigate through this challenging issue, but it's not for a lack of support or want on the part of council. I think, we made an effort several years ago to increase both police and fire introductory. Every year you don't do something aggressive, you're lagging behind, and we're really well aware of that. So thank you for the commitment you all have to our city and to your work. I know that you're very passionate about it, and we're the beneficiaries of that, so thank you very much. Council, maybe anyone else have any comments? Yes?
Thank you, Mayor, for that. I think, from my point of view, and taking accountability for not really understanding what was presenting to us, not that it was a misrepresentation, but that was my first budget process. I did not realize that we were not raising that pay range. And I'm very concerned that in the budget crisis that we're in, that we're not going to be able to do that for several years for our public service employees. And in taking responsibility and taking accountability for my own oversight, I would like to make a motion to add this budget amendment to the consent agenda, so that we get this right for our employees, especially since we're coming into a budget season where we might not be able to do that this time.
I can second that motion, though I typically would like to see it on an agenda first and to use the proper process for adding it.
So are you seconding the motion?
I just seconded it, yes. There's a motion and a second on the table. But I wanted to say a couple things as well. When unions organize, all workers win. So what we see today is the IAFF Local 332, the firefighters, have had to make a formal appeal and a long drag-out process and work with staff and legal to make sure that the process is in place for an employee who has a grievance to have a third-party representation. That can be a union member, it can be a current or former employee. It means that if you're new on the job and you come into City Hall and it's really intimidating, that you have someone with experience who knows their rights and what's happening in the conversation while you're stressed out. So because the union has brought this forward and created this process with our staff at all levels, that means that every single city staff member has more fair representation. So I want to say thank you. The struggle is worth it, and it helps all of us. I also know that we've wrestled with firefighter wages for at least the past 11 years, because my first city council meeting during the budget process, the firefighters were in here then, and almost every year since then. And the wrestling match that we seem to have is salary and hours. So we are doing one of two things in the city of Asheville. We are either paying our firefighters 832 hours for $0, or the hourly structure breaks down where we're paying them just over $17 an hour. We had this struggle a couple of months before Helene. That was shameful. And then we are having this struggle after these staff just got us through what was potentially an ice storm that we were spared from. And I'm weary of the fact that our newest firefighters' introduction to our organization, it has so much shame wrapped around in it when we rely on them, and we want to set a tone that we want to invest in our staff, and we want them to stay and get us through the next crisis. So I'm worried about what it means for us as a culture, as an organization as well, and that's why I'm supporting making the budget amendment, because we find money for the things that we care about. Thank you for considering it.
So I guess I have a point of order.
Well, and yes, because we don't have a clear motion on the, Councilwoman Roney, and I, this is a little unlike me, but you have refused to sign the letter to the local government commission, yet you're willing to take more money out of our fund balance, even though we're
Needs to be
having to
amended.
report to the local government commission regarding the status of our fund balance. Can you help me understand that?
Well, the last process for the budget, we did find additional funds to become a tenant for our police department to move to the outlet. So we did have funding. And the year before that, we had funding for a
But
transit
why won't you
study.
sign the letter to the local
Because we
government
need to
commission?
amend it because we have budget considerations, including this matter.
So after we take this vote, you'll sign the letter to the local government
I will
commission?
read the letter and consider signing it, but we have
Because
work to
you
do on this
refused to sign
budget.
it last year too, so I'm just trying to understand how, you know, it's a safe vote to do something for people because we all want to do it. But some people have to be responsible about a budget. And you're refusing to even sign a letter acknowledging we're using our fund balance below our policy limits, yet you're
It needs
going
to
to
be
vote to
amended.
use more of it now.
It needs to be amended.
What needs to be amended?
The letter needs to be amended, the work needs to be amended to reflect our new budget. We're making this decision. There's a motion and a second on the table.
What is the motion?
Well, again, point of order.
Please, yes.
We already had a motion and a second on the table, and then Bo followed with an additional motion.
Yeah.
And she seconded before we voted on the original motion. Can you help with that, Council?
Yeah, that's correct. So you have a motion and the second on the table right now to approve your existing consent agenda. Pursuant to your council rules, a new substantive motion cannot interrupt a existing motion on the table. Now, you can, after this motion has been voted on, make the motion again, Councilman Hess, to add this to any portion of the agenda. Or you could make a separate motion, which is a little more long form, to amend the consent agenda. But right now, you have one motion on the table, and you can only do one motion at a time. That's a substantive motion.
This is why I requested that we add the formal process last week.
So it sounds like we have to vote on the consent agenda and then
All right, well, let's go
make
ahead.
the motion.
All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I would like to make a motion to add,
Before you do that, could I add something?
Yes.
So I asked staff to provide council with every document we were provided in our budget negotiations last year. And in the March 25th work session response, there is information that reads, and this is regarding pay and kind of the question at heart of were folks promised a raise or were they promised a compensation adjustment? And it reads, the data reflects the impact on current City of Asheville permanent full-time employees. There will still be future employees hired after July 1, 2025, whose starting salary will fall below $48,152. As staff noted at the budget work session, a roughly 19% pay plan increase would be required to permanently shift the city's hiring wages above $48,152. And then in subsequent budgets, we never approved a 19% pay plan increase. So I just want to enter that because there's a sense that there was a lot of confusion. I definitely think there was lots of moving pieces that moved frequently in this conversation. But I do distinctly remember, and we had a memo as such, differentiating that a raise and a pay plan increase are very different things with very different financial impacts.
So I'd like to hear from our manager because we've just hired a new city manager and she's had a chance to take a look at this issue. And I don't want to undermine her leadership and especially with regard to the budget. This is the key function of a city manager is the guardian of the budget and to provide us with budget recommendations. So if you would just provide us some, we don't typically make off-the-cuff budget amendments. In fact, I have never participated in an off-the-cuff budget amendment, and I'm not comfortable with that. But at the same time, I also would like to hear from the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to share. As you mentioned, 2027 budget development is going to be a very difficult year for us for multiple reasons. In the development of the 2026 budget, I did take some time to go back and listen and read and understand the steps that were taken by staff and previous manager, and would like to, it represented to me an attempt to really work with APD and AFD to really come up with a compensation plan that was fair and that moved the needle just a little bit more. Again, couldn't do everything. With regard to a budget amendment, it would be my recommendation to deal with this issue as a part of our 2027 budget development for two reasons. One, it's very difficult to plan for and manage a budget in 1 year and think about long-term impacts of those changes if we're making mid-year adjustments to the budget, whether small or large. Second, the compensation plan, the pay plan is structured in such a way that one change will impact others, right? And so what you see before you is an estimate. What you saw in the memo from staff was an estimate to make one change that would impact the ultimate structure of our compensation plan. We're going to work during the 2027 budget process to make sure that we're making decisions based on information that helps you all make decisions for that budget year and then subsequent budget years. So it would be my recommendation to allow staff to have this discussion, work with our partners, to come present something to you all that you can make an informed decision on with relation to compensation.
So does that mean that they would get back pay if we considered that in this budget?
Well, it's too early to say what those decisions will be as a part of the budget process, so I can't speak to retroactive pay at this point.
Okay.
That would be up to us.
Yeah. Ultimately, it's you all's decision to pass a budget amendment mid-year and your decision to, there are nuances in budget development. So there's a lot of decisions that need to be made as a part of that process.
I really appreciate the mayor's words and Councilmember Ullman's honoring of the staff memo. And I said in the beginning that it was my oversight. It was my responsibility to really understand that. And I did not understand that difference between the pay range and, I thought if we were giving a pay raise to our employees that it would be for all the employees that entered. And it's my understanding that the fund balance is also there for these exact issues. And
No. Fund balance is not to be used to pay salaries that are recurring expenses. You took the class at the school of government, you know that.
so if this is a one-time expense
But it's not a one-time expense.
It's like using your savings account to pay for your light bill. The light bill always happens again, and so you just keep dwindling your savings down, and there's no new taxes to fill up your savings account again. So that's why it's generally
Recurring
complete-
expenses are not
Yeah.
used, fund balance is not used for recurring expenses.
And then part of why it's so important to keep the fund balance is part of a system I think is dumb, to be frank, but like, we borrow so much money in order to pay for all the infrastructure and so much of what it takes to run a city. And the lenders that give us that money say you have to have a 15% fund balance in case something happens and you can't pay us back. So I find it frustrating, like a savings account should be around for when you're at your most dire, like Helene. That
Which
would
it
have,
was,
it would,
and we did use it.
and we did, and then we were able to move things forward. So that's where some of this just really gets, it's just really hard. Welker, I'm very touched when I hear you say, just do the right thing. That's what I want to do. And quite frankly, I want to hear you represent all city employees, because our water department employees deserve this just as much as fire. So do our sanitation workers, our parks workers. Like, to me, I find it inspiring to see effective union organizing, but like, what about all the other employees? They deserve it just as much. And then the consequences of our bond rating perhaps going down because we start using our fund balance, for the second year in a row where we chose to dip in, what is that going to do for all of our infrastructure needs? After the recovery, the top priority citizens told us, say it with me, infrastructure. We really, really, really risk our ability to borrow the money to then build the city back that we need. I want to do all of it. Can someone give me a motion where I can do all of it? Would you like to raise taxes to fund this? Because I'm not hearing either of you propose that.
So in my mind, this correction is a one-time.
It's not a correction, though. We clearly saw that there is a difference between a raise and a compensation adjustment.
So we're going to, in this dire budget season that we're coming up in, we're going to raise the pay range for employees that we haven't done in 2 or 3 years. And that's the concern that I have.
We
is
have
that-
raised,
we have
we've
raised
raised
the pay
pay
rate.
substantially
Not since
every
I've
year
been on
since I've been
council.
on council.
The year before, I believe is what, Ben, you came back and told us. But, Bo, I mean, we have figured this out every year. We have figured this out in terms of employee raises. I think the only time that hasn't happened or was only a COLA was during the Great Recession, the years during the Great Recession. But, so I don't, we don't know what our revenue outlook looks like yet. It's early days. We don't have the reval numbers back. All of it is still in the making. So it's very early in the process. I'm committed to making that a priority in terms of supporting increases for employee pay to the extent that that's possible in this budget cycle. I don't intend to support a budget that doesn't do that, assuming we are able to figure that out. So, I would like to work with the manager to, it's already almost February. We're right on the cusp of the beginning of many, many budget meetings, and I would like to give this some time to figure this out. But again, to Maggie's point, it's not for lack of want. Our estimate for the salary adjustment for just in fire is actually around $50,000 is my understanding. And for all employees hired since July 1, it's actually $250,000 or so. And that's without dealing with compression. So I think we need to get a handle on what the budget impacts are and how we can serve all of our employees this next budget cycle. That's where I'm coming from on it.
And for the record, I would like to include all the employees in this. I think that
I've heard you
is
say
what's
that,
fair.
yeah. There is not. We just had lots of good discussion.
That is a good discussion, and the mayor and I have talked about this, and I do know that she wants to make this right, and also we are we're in financial straits. In my mind, though, between 30 million and 30 million.25, I think we can find what it takes to make this right, especially if we're not going to do the pay ranges this next year.
Oh, and you say to make this right?
Right, from me not,
So,
I'm taking accountability for my misunderstanding. It's nothing that
So,
the staff did.
a few people's council errors on the back of the taxpayers.
It is quite tumultuous to go through this whole process because one person didn't understand exactly what we were doing. So, one or two, yes. This is unusual, and I don't think this should be precedent setting. It is rare that we make budget amendments, and they're usually very technical in nature. We're moving money from one fund to another that was already projected. I just want to lay that out there. This isn't, we want to try to have predictability in our actions. And generally, when it comes to financial management of a city, it needs to be fairly calm and steady.
How about we let the grievance process play out with the firefighters, and then we revisit this at a next city council meeting?
Do you have a scheduled date for the grievance hearing?
Not yet.
Not yet, so let's see when that happens, and then schedule it. And I was thinking you might not be here.
I'll be, because.
Because it's earlier,
Yeah.
all right. Thank you, Bo. Okay. Okay, we have 2 presentations and reports. First of all, I appreciate the conversation we just had. Thank you all. And I know some people are waiting to hear that. We have 2 presentations and reports. The first is the Asheville Downtown Improvement District Annual Report. Is Dana doing the introduction or no? Oh, Kevin Frazier's doing the introduction, okay.
I'll do a quick introduction. Thank you, Mayor, members of council, Dinwiddie. I am the ex officio member from the city of Asheville of the ADID. Vice Mayor Mosley also serves on the ADID as an ex officio representative of city council. This is your annual report. Once a year, in this case, the ADID, but the selected contractor is required by state law to come before you and provide an update on their activities from the previous year, and they'll also talk about some of the things they plan to do in the future. One thing I want to reflect and note is, having watched this business improvement district come off the ground, I want to thank Kevin for his leadership and Hayden and Erica as well. They have put a tremendous amount of effort into making this bid what I believe to be successful, be an asset for downtown, and it's quite remarkable when you consider all that you've been able to accomplish with things like Helene that happened along the way. So again, excited to have Kevin and Hayden here today, almost said tonight, but this morning to give you an update. And again, thank you for what you've done so far to stand up the bid.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, city manager, good morning. My name is Kevin Frazier, and I serve as chair of the board of the Asheville Downtown Improvement District, and I'm joined this morning by several members of the board. Thank you for your leadership and for believing in downtown Asheville. When this district was debated in 2024, it showed how deeply people care about this city. There were tough questions, strong feelings, and important concerns raised by the public about trust, accountability, and value. We heard and shared those concerns, and in our first year, we've worked intentionally to address them through transparency, partnership, and measurable results. Council chose to move forward thoughtfully, and in this first year, we've honored that trust by moving deliberately and with purpose, focused on building a foundation for long-term success. Downtown belongs to everyone. It's a shared space for locals and visitors alike. Our focus has been simple: to make downtown cleaner, safer, and more welcoming for all. We've done that through strong partnerships with Next Street, the Asheville Area Chamber of Commerce, and the Asheville Downtown Association, and through the leadership of 2 exceptional placemaking professionals, our Executive Director, Hayden Plemmons, and our Deputy Director, Erica Waltemade. Just as importantly, we've worked closely with the Continuum of Care and with nonprofit organizations that serve our most vulnerable neighbors, because a truly welcoming downtown must be grounded in dignity, coordination, and care for all. What you'll see this morning is a district that's already delivering value and building momentum. Not just programs, but trust. Not just activity, but true connection. As we look ahead to 2026, we're excited to deepen our placemaking work, create a downtown that is not only vibrant, but truly shared and cared for by the whole community. Council, thank you for making the hard decision. The first year shows what's possible when leadership and community move forward together. It's my pleasure to introduce our Executive Director, Hayden Plemmons, to share the results of our first year.
Thank you, Kevin, and good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council, of course, our manager. I am here this morning to share how truly proud I am of this program, the Asheville Downtown Improvement District. I want to take a moment just to acknowledge what this report actually represents. 7 months of service, June through December, and during that time we built an organization from the ground up, mobilizing governance, contracting, services, hiring and training staff, and standing up new operational and data systems. And we became a visible, trusted presence in downtown. All of this while responding in real time to the needs of a complex public environment. This work would not have been possible without strong partners such as yourselves and extraordinary leadership. We're deeply grateful to city staff, Next Street, who employ and support our ambassadors, the Chamber of Commerce, Kit and Casey and Layton, and of course my colleague Erica Waltmade, our Deputy Director, for her steady leadership in building a program that we are proud of. This group makes up over 100 years of downtown management experience. I'd also like to thank our board chair, Kevin Frazier, whose thoughtful leadership helped guide the program from concept to reality. And of course, nothing happens without our incredible ambassadors, one of which is here today in case you have any questions. Each day they show up with professionalism, compassion, and heart. And this weekend, a lot of ice melt. The report you have in front of you and is available online has the facts of the services we delivered. But this morning I want to share what that's looked like on the ground. This page shows the intentional design of the program. Clean and green, what people see first. Hospitality is what changes how downtown feels, and placemaking is how we create long-term value. These services must work together to create a beautiful, vibrant, and welcoming downtown. They cannot stand alone. We were able to work on a number of special projects, as you see our beautiful seasonal lights. The seasonal lights change how our parks feel, safer, warmer, more welcoming. We were able to relaunch the beloved Flower Basket program in downtown, which became a daily reminder of the care in our public space. We also partnered with other organizations to reinforce that activation in downtown thrives through collaboration. Now this picture introduces the backbone of the Asheville Downtown Improvement District, our ambassador team. 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's this consistency that has enabled us to build trust in our community. That's a lot of tasks. So this is a picture of every task that took place from June through December. And I know this is small, but this is a breakdown of every single task, and you have it in front of you. And it represents thousands of moments on the ground, conversations, cleanup, tasks. This is responsiveness at scale, and what otherwise may have fallen through the cracks. We have some data here for you, some before and afters. You'll see here that we have community engagement tasks and all of the times that our ambassadors engage with community. This could be a business owner, this could be a visitor. It could be, especially, well, not this week. This weekend's data is not included, but they did a lot of jump-starting vehicles and helping people kind of get out of the icy situations. You can see that we have a hot spot around Pritchard Park for these community engagement tasks. We also have sweeping tasks, and you can see we had nearly 20,000 sweeping tasks. We have decided, so you'll see in future reports, this number should go down significantly because we will be categorizing those sweeping tasks a little bit differently to drill into what type of task they're actually doing when they're sweeping. You can identify a couple hot spots here, again, Pritchard Park and the ART Transit Station. We have some before and after photos. You know, we include this for transparency and accountability. But what you might not see when you're looking at all these photos is the care and the judgment and the humanity that goes into every single task by our ambassadors. And again, you can dig into that. Code Brown tasks, that is what you think it is. We have seen kind of a hot spot again. You know, our office is located right there on Haywood Street near Pritchard Park, so they catch a lot happening there as they're leaving the office and coming back every day. But also near the Portland Loo, I think we encounter, you know, folks going to the loo, needing to use the restroom, and it might be occupied, so they do their business outside of it, which is kind of an interesting data point that was unexpected. And we have some visuals for you, so there are your Code Brown tasks.
You guys really do
Landscaping
document everything.
We do, yes. Landscaping tasks, you can see here, we had a hot spot around Haywood Street congregation. Our ambassadors have been very committed to cleaning up the landscaping around those service providers because, well, the service providers requested it, and it has really made a huge difference in visibility and cleanliness in that area around Carter and Ann Streets. You can also see where we might have done some work outside of the district here. That's kind of when we were refining the district and the ambassadors were learning where the area boundaries were. Some landscaping before and after photos. Graffiti tasks, almost 3,000 of those, and hotspots kind of all over downtown. We have some before and afters. Okay. And ambassador training. This is most important in the bid work. As you dictated in the resolution, we have trained our ambassadors rigorously in trauma-informed engagement, de-escalation, equity, and coordination of public service. I'm going to scroll down so you can see how many training engagements they had, and I learned recently that that's not all of them. We utilized our local nonprofits, our local experts to actually deliver that training. Hood Huggers, Umoja, the City of Asheville, AFD, A-Hope, All Souls Counseling, Niche Academy. We had a lot of coordination with nonprofit groups across downtown. And of course, we wanted to build an organization that was transparent and responsive. So you can see here that because of your resolution, we recruited board members that are diverse and are committed to downtown. You can view the aided board roster, all of our agendas, meeting minutes, each of these quarterly reports on our website. That went fast.
Maggie's 10 minutes is always faster.
Okay.
Than most roll.
Shall we move to questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Community and data input collection. We had our deputy director has joined the COC as the business seat on the board of directors. We also have launched a texting program, so that's kind of new in the last few weeks. You can actually text our ambassadors. We also have community and data input from local businesses during our business resiliency program. And then I'll scroll down here a little bit, talk about our work plan, which you have access to through this link. And you can also view it online. In 2026, I could go ahead and skip on to that. We're really looking forward to working with micro neighborhoods in downtown to expand placemaking, and we have secured funding for a refresh of the Wall Street mural and working with Wall Street to kind of reinvigorate the vibrancy along that street. And we really look forward to using this momentum and capacity to do a lot of great work in 2026. What questions do you all have?
I'd love to hear more about the hiring process. My understanding from just talking with different board members is this is really a workforce development program also, that there's now a handful of folks being employed that might not have had a lot of other work opportunities. Could you just talk to me about that part of it?
Absolutely. So many of our ambassadors have lived experience with homelessness, recovery, and justice involvement. Many of them have been able to actually transition from temporary housing to permanent housing and reunite with families, build stable careers. You know, this is changing lives. One of our ambassadors, even last week, actually was able to save a life by administering Narcan to a person in crisis. So if that's not the most compelling part of this work, something that I'm truly, truly proud to be a part of.
And your ambassadors are taking training and outreach.
Oh, yes.
Right.
They have done outreach training with AFD, APD, like I mentioned, All Souls Counseling, Emoja. There's a lot of partners involved.
It seems like, so this was our second try to get a bid in place in Asheville, and not without controversy and concern around what would these ambassadors be like? Would they, be, big brother calling the police or something like that, and that would be their only function? A lot of us have had a chance to meet the ambassadors and understand the work they do, and instead it seems like when we've had a conversation about what it looks like to reimagine public safety, where we have interactions that don't involve the police anymore, that traditionally used to always involve the police, we're seeing that now. Because what I've heard from some of your folks is, if there's a business owner who has someone who might be sleeping on their property or something, in the past they might have called the police, but now they might call you all, and you might have an ambassador who has information for that individual about resources that are available. Talk to us a little bit about how those interactions work.
Sure. And if it's okay, I'll invite Christopher
Please,
Sherbert up.
absolutely.
He's one of
Yes.
our ambassador supervisors. I can speak to that. Chris, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, so interaction.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Chris Sherbert, I'm second shift supervisor for the ADID and an employee of Next Street. Typical interactions may run from as simple as showing up because we got a call that somebody is being loud, or, showing that, there's a crisis going on, and we've been able to sit down and talk to them, or there's been interactions between several people where we're able to separate them and actually talk to them and calm it down. We'd like to be the first line so that cops don't have to be called, and people can understand that there's another way to go about it that keeps everything calm and moving forward. All our ambassadors have built, trust with the unhoused as well as the business owners. So they know they can call us. In a lot of the, troubled unhoused, we already know what's going on with them, so we can show up and actually talk to them and, bring them away and get them calmed back down to where they're able to continue with their day.
Thank you.
I'm curious about reflecting on the charts that Hayden was showing and how much street cleaning and code browns and all these other ones that you all do, could you guess at what the ratio is of how much time you're just out there cleaning, hanging up baskets versus interacting with the unhoused? Is it a pretty small percentage of your interaction? Is it the majority of what you're spending your time?
I would
Do you have any guess,
say
ballpark?
it's 70% cleaning, 30% to, interacting with unhoused as far as calls and stuff like that. Now, we interact with the unhoused every day purposely so we could just see how they're doing as we go through our routes and our business and stuff like that. We, when we see them, we purposely stop. If we see somebody that's laying down on the ground, we make sure we stop to make sure they're okay. They might just be sleeping, or like the situation we had about 2 weeks ago where the gentleman was ODing, and we're able to help him out until the police department and the fire department and rescue was able to get there. So, to say that, it's a 70-30 would just be because of calls, but it's 100% interaction every day with what we can do for them or just checking on them.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I'm so impressed with the Asheville Downtown Improvement District. Thank you, Hayden. Thank you, Chair Kevin Frazier, for your leadership. I've heard from many of the business owners downtown how much they appreciate this service. I've heard from residents. Every single time I have approached an ambassador, they have been pleasant, they have been polite, respectful, and I guarantee you they do not know who I am. They are just that way. And in fact, I texted some of my colleagues and you, Hayden, as the storm was coming in, as the wind was blowing, it was 18 degrees outside. They were out on the streets making sure that it was safe for walkers, picking up trash. And of course, I pulled over and told them thank you. But it was so impressive. So if you see one of our ambassadors, tell them thank you. They're doing hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing I'd also say about this is when we pass this, I think I even said from the dais, like, if this doesn't work, I'll say I was wrong and we can get rid of it. Because I think it's important for us to try things. You know, we can't just be in a culture of delay because it could go wrong. And if it had gone wrong, that would have been hard politically, but it would have been right to try. And it feels like this is a really good success. It also feels like this is a fair share model. Like, we're talking about the ambassadors and how clean things are, but in this situation with the aided, those with the most stake in downtown contribute more. It feels like an economic justice opportunity here where the downtown business owners needed some more things to keep this a place that we all want to enjoy and spend time, and they're chipping in, and now it's great jobs for folks who might not have had other opportunity. It's more welcoming spaces and more compassionate approaches for our unhoused, and downtown's cleaner. I just feel like this is a moment to pause amidst the struggle and challenge of all the other hard stuff we have to do, and just go like, all right, we took a risk, I think it's paying off, and the policy still says we get to check in every year if something goes haywire, but I don't think it's gonna. I think it's been really great, and I think the leadership of the chair of the board and the staff and everybody out on the streets doing the cleaning, I'm just really proud of all the work and so thankful.
Ditto to that. Thank you. Hayden, you guys are doing a great job. And I know, Kit, I hope you're feeling a little like the fruits of your labor are being realized. Because I know for a lot of people behind the scenes, this was a tremendous amount of work to get to this point. And it continues to be a lot of work. So
Yes.
we're very appreciative.
Thank you. And if you didn't hear that, you can now text the bid. So be sure and save that number and make sure that all of our constituents know that. We appreciate you all so much and our partnerships. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have one other presentation and report today, and that is the manager's report. I'm going to turn it over to our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have one item. Our Parks and Recs Director, D. Tyrell McGirt, will come and present. But before he does that, I will like to take the opportunity to thank our staff who worked and prepared for the winter storm, from our public works workers to our first responders, park staff. Everybody did such an amazing job preparing, and we're still in monitoring stage, but I just want to take this time to publicly, again, show gratitude to staff for that.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Again, for the record, I'm D. Tyrell McGirt. I have the pleasure of serving as the Parks and Recreation Director here with the City of Asheville. This presentation is just to recognize and highlight some of the Black History Month programming happening within the department. Just keep in mind, Asheville Parks and Rec being able to offer these Black History Month programming events through art, film, food, music, workshops, helps us do a few things. One, build community cohesion, helps us provide some education and cultural awareness around our legacy neighborhoods and what they've produced. Strengthens our connection to local history, as well as it just builds community and unity. Under the direction of Candy Hensley Shaw, our recreation management team delivers high quality programming that tends to be inclusive for all people. We invite all Asheville residents come out and participate in our programs, and we do so by prioritizing affordability, making sure that what we're offering within the department is done at a free or reduced cost. This eliminates barriers from people being able to participate, and again, we invite all to come out. I do want to highlight that all of this is possible by our staff that are boots on the ground, our ground worker, ground level employees, starting with our facility managers, make all of our programming possible. And I just want to recognize the facility managers at each of our 8 sites throughout the city. Cal Autry over at Burton Street, Shatisha Bowden over at Grove Street, Tamika Hill, over at the Linwood Crump Shiloh Community Center, Seth Jackson at Tempe Avery Montfort, Jessica Johnston at the Dr. Wesley Grant Senior Southside Center, Kim Kennedy at Stevens Lee, Shauna Kirowall at Harvest House, Lori Long at Murphy Oakley Community Center, and Zach Stewart. This team is a part of our Recreation Management Division. They work collectively together. At the beginning of the year, they sit down, look at all the programming that the department is going to be offering, and make sure that in addition to the Black History Month program and everything that we're doing across the department are going to be things that the public wants to see. So 2026, we are entering into America's 250th anniversary. And part of what we want to do in Asheville Parks and Rec is take our national history coupled with our local heritage, use Black History Month, a month where we celebrate throughout this country the contributions of Black Americans. We highlight, we honor those contributions often overlooked by Black folk to the overall contributions of our country's history, the culture, and society as a whole. So we kick off our Black History Month celebration with several things. An art event over in Southside. We have a community celebration and learning event happening in Shiloh, and we have a food event happening in East End Valley. We invite citizens out on February 11th to Black History Through the Eyes of Art. This is an opening reception to take a look at the art exhibit that is happening at the Grant Southside Center. On February 14th, Shades of Red, Our Black History is Love. This is a community event happening at the Shiloh Center, also a learning opportunity. We also have our annual Soul Food Supper happening at Stevens Lee Community Center. I was with Renee White, the president of the East End Valley Street Neighborhood Association last week. And as she was talking about this annual event and the food that's going to be offered, the contractors who were there for the ribbon cutting were like, wait a minute, what date did you say? They wanted to make sure they had the February 19th date on their schedules. We also, on February 20th, we have a couple of events early in the afternoon at the Dr. George Washington Carver Edible Park. We have a work and learn event happening. And then later in the day at Tempe Avery Montfort Center, we have a music and film event titled Montfort Melodies and Legacy Celebrations. So I understand that if you're into music, we're gonna have a little bit of everything from James Brown to Beyonce being highlighted and showcased there. We end the month on February 21st at the Burton Street Community Center with a Black History Month discussion, specifically discussing the history of our legacy neighborhood, Burton Street community. I think it's important to just kind of realize that Asheville Parks and Recreation consists of 58 parks, over 500 acres of park space, 8 centers that are spread out throughout town, and miles of greenways and natural surface trails. We are honored to, within our system, be able to speak to and say that we have several park spaces and center sites named in honor of Black citizens, both on the national level as well as those citizens that are right here from our community here in Asheville. And these are just some of those highlighted park spaces and centers here in Asheville. It's important to also point out that all of these programs that I've just brought up are free, but some of them do require registration, so we encourage citizens that if there's anything that I just mentioned that sparks your interest, we encourage you to go to avlrec.com, get registered for those programs. This QR code would take you to all of our Black History Month events, as well as everything that we have happening within Asheville Parks and Rec during this winter, spring season. That's in January through May 2026. Everything that we do is online, but if you just have to have that paper copy, we do have program guides at each of our center sites, also at our public libraries throughout town. So we encourage you, if you have to have the paper copy, go to one of the center sites and pick it up there. I end with saying that, again, I highlighted that we're celebrating America's 250th anniversary, and being able to highlight and showcase often overlooked contributions to culture and society of Black Americans is important. And it's important that we do that within our department. I get asked a question on a personal note often, how do you like Asheville? This month is my 4-year anniversary being here, and surprisingly to some, when I say I enjoy it, I like it, it catches them off guard. But I tell you, the reason why I like it is because we have this history, this Black history that we can highlight and connect to and showcase. We have these center sites that are named in honoring Black citizens from Asheville in a meaningful, powerful way. And my career has taken me across the globe to different parts of this country. And this is not the case everywhere that I've been. So being able to be in a community where we're able to highlight this and it's welcomed and people want more of this is a joy. So this is part of my journey, a little personal testimony to what makes Asheville meaningful and my time here enjoyable. Again, get registered, sign up, and come out to some of our events happening next month as well as throughout the season. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that
End of report.
Okay, that concludes our presentations and reports. We have 3 public hearing items. I'm going to move right into the first one, which is a public hearing to consider a performance-based economic development incentive grant to support Project Vessel. And while Rachel's getting ready to tell us about this, we haven't had a lot of these in the last few years. So just so the public understands, when the city is being asked to participate in a incentive grant for economic development, and it's usually in concert with the city, the county, and the state. And there are various criteria that an applicant has to meet in order to be eligible. And the council is always asked about an incentive grant first in closed session pursuant to a statute that allows councils to consider these in closed session, so that staff has an indication of whether or not there's support for it, so they can go out and negotiate these deals. And then when it's ready, and it's been some time now, we vote on these in an open session of council and give the public an opportunity to comment. So since we haven't done one of these in a long time, I just wanted to let folks know what the process is for these. And I'm going to turn over to Rachel to tell us more about Project Vessel.
Thank you.
And they're always given some ridiculous name like Project Vessel. So.
My favorite was Project Casper for burial beer.
That's right.
All right, so my name is Rachel Taylor. I'm the Economic Development Division Manager, and I'm excited to present to you all today about Project Vessel for a potential economic development incentive project. As the mayor mentioned, it's been some time since council and the public have had an incentive project, so I'll go through the project details, and I'll also provide a bit of context for our economic development policy and our process as well. This project is from a creative manufacturing company that specializes in home goods. This proposed project supports an accelerated expansion to double the production capacity for this year. The company is proposing investing $2.5 million in taxable investments with an addition of 40 jobs with an average wage of $54,000 a year. The company will also include benefits such as healthcare, dental, 401k, and others. And the anticipated timeline for the project is 1 year for the build-out. The city is one of 3 locations being considered for this project. And as a note, all incentives are paid as annual reimbursements, so we always make sure that the company has completed the improvements that they have committed to and met their hiring goals. So before I go into the project in a bit more depth, I'm going to give an overview of our incentive program and our economic development policy. So in 1997, council voted to and established the economic development policy, which was then updated in 2015 to establish a living wage benchmark for jobs. This policy is designed to stimulate private sector investment, economic growth, and job creation by offering grants consistent with the policy and the availability of funds. This policy allows us to have a consistent manner for the city to participate in the development of business activity to support significant and positive economic impacts to the community. We rely on a partnership model, so locally we work with partners such as the Economic Development Coalition to facilitate initial project review and to also help us maintain those long-term relationships with companies that move forward with these types of grant agreements. We also work with the state of North Carolina, Buncombe County, and others to conduct this work and to really leverage competitive incentive packages. We have two kind of key features of our economic development policy, which include the industrial development and business development grants. These grants are based on the company's taxable investment, and per policy, we're able to offer up to a maximum of 90% of that taxable capital investment for a time frame of up to 7 years. The grants are structured as a 5 to 7 year grant agreement based on performance. So we look at hiring. Are they meeting their hiring goals? Are they investing in those upfit and construction items that they committed to? And of course, we ensure that they are paying their annual taxes each year. Initial projects are reviewed in closed session with final approval being subject to public hearing. This confidentiality aids in our negotiations and helps our city be more competitive in the process. With that, I'll go into more depth about the project. So the company is a creative manufacturer of home goods. The company has grown steadily over the last decade and has doubled its production capacity from last year, employing over 120 employees. The proposed expansion aims to streamline fulfillment and keep it in-house locally, which would retain 10 to 15 jobs, as well as expand and streamline production operations to be able to double its capacity. The company is discussing expanding and upfitting one of its local facilities, and this will allow the company to meet growing demand while working towards a larger 10-year vision for our campus to showcase production, host tours, and sell goods. So we're really excited to see this combination of the creative economy, manufacturing, and then the longer-term vision for our visitor economy as well. The primary drivers for the company include proximity to existing facilities and incentive support. The company is also considering Henderson County, North Carolina, and Greenville, South Carolina. The proposed investment timeframe for the project is 1 to 3 years, which includes the decision, announcement, investments, and job creation. The company is proposing investing $2.5 million, $500,000 of which would be towards property improvements, and $2 million would go towards business, personal property, machinery, and equipment. The company is proposing to add 40 new jobs with an average wage of $54,000 annually. 30 of those positions would be general labor, 5 would be warehouse positions, 3 would be supervisor positions, and 2 would be engineering or other technical positions. The company offers many benefits, including healthcare, dental, paid time off, 401k matching, and others. The company is also committed to participating in inclusive hiring partners and Operation Gateway. They're also a certified living wage employer and a certified B Corporation. So with that, staff is recommending entering into a performance-based economic development incentive grant agreement to support this project in an amount not to exceed $35,000 over a 3-year agreement. Per our policy, incentives will be paid over a 1 to 3 year period, subject to the completion of improvements and hiring workers as outlined in an economic development agreement. So with that, I will pause and take any questions, and I've put up a suggested motion.
So I just wanted to highlight my appreciation over my time in council with the focus on affordability and the conversation around housing. Folks, including members of the community that are in this room, have reminded me it's about how much folks are getting paid and that the economy is critical. So when we look at what we're being asked to contribute as a partner and the ripple effect and the jobs, but also second chance employer is a big deal. It's manufactured goods in the arts and creative sector. They're exportable goods. This is just a multi-solving win for our community when I look at how many people are going to be able to afford to live because of it. I'm prepared to make a motion. I move to authorize the city manager to enter into a performance-based economic development incentive agreement to support Project Vestal in an amount not to exceed $35,000 over a 3-year grant agreement.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We didn't have anyone sign up to speak, so we didn't need to open the public hearing first. So luckily that worked out. And I'll close the public hearing.
Actually, I think there are 2 people.
Are there? I'm looking at
Mike Romero and Andy Whiting.
That's under item
Oh, that's
B,
on B.
the next item on the agenda.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You're back just in time.
I was listening, I swear.
Okay, now we're on to public hearing item B, and we will have a couple people who are signed up to speak on this one. But first, we're going to hear from Will. Last time it said Will, and it wasn't you. So welcome back. This is a public hearing to rezone 22 Broad Street from RM8 Residential Multifamily Medium Density District to Community Business 1 District.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor, members of council. Will Palmquist with Planning and Urban Design. I'll be presenting this rezoning petition for the property at 22 Broad Street. Here is the subject property outlined in red on the aerial image. It's in North Asheville, about a half mile north of downtown and 1 block from Merriman Avenue. It's about a 0.2 acre site and is currently a single-family residence. Here you can see the existing and proposed rezoning maps. This is a straight rezoning request, so there are no development plans or conditions attached to this request. It is simply requesting a change from one district to another. The existing RM8 residential multifamily medium density, and then the proposed community business 1 CB1 district. So this would essentially just shift that line between the 2 districts, 1 property to the east. The existing future land use is traditional corridor as outlined in the city's comprehensive plan, so no change in that designation would be required for this rezoning. The rezoning was recommended for approval at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on January 7th. This chart breaks down the differences between the existing RM8 and proposed CB1 districts. There are some minor differences, such as the CB1 not having minimum lot size or lot width and not requiring parking for most uses. The main difference between the 2 districts is that the proposed CB1 district would allow for commercial, office, and retail uses. Staff has identified a number of pros associated with the rezoning request. The first one being that it would allow for a wider array of commercial, office, and retail uses. It would encourage the preservation and conversion of the existing residential structure on the property into a different commercial-oriented use, which is consistent with the development pattern along this section of Broad Street. Here you can see the purpose of the CB1 district, which talks about a medium-density business service uses that serve multiple residential neighborhoods. The proposed rezoning request is compatible with the surrounding land uses, such as other commercial uses in the nearby vicinity along Broad Street, Liberty Street, and Merriman Avenue, many of which are located in former single-family residences, as well as compatible with the single-family residential neighborhoods that generally surround the subject property. The request is consistent with the traditional corridor designation in the future land use map, which is described in part as a roadway with a variety of land uses, including commercial, office, and residential at a variety of scales. Community Business 1 is cited as an appropriate zoning district within that traditional corridor, future land use category. The request supports a number of goals in the plan, such as to encourage responsible growth by ensuring that new development has the appropriate infrastructure to support it, and to facilitate real estate development that maximizes public benefit by establishing accessible and well-connected commercial nodes consistent with strategies outlined in the plan's growth areas. Staff concurs with the Planning and Zoning Commission and recommends approval of the proposed rezoning, and I'm glad to answer any questions you may have.
Council, any questions or comments for this one? Okay, we can open the public hearing. Public comment. The first person signed up to speak is Mike Romero.
I actually just represent the owner of the property. I don't know that I really signed up to speak, just if you guys have any questions about the conversion.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Romero? Today's your lucky day. The next person signed up to speak then is Andy Widenhouse.
He's your engineer, same.
Same thing?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we can close the public hearing because no one else has signed up to speak. Council, is there a motion?
I move to approve the rezoning request by the property located at 22 Broad Street from residential multifamily density to Community Business 1, and find that the request is reasonable and the public interest is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan and meets the development needs of the community, in that the request, 1, ensures that new development has the appropriate infrastructure to support it, and 2, establishes accessible and well-connected commercial nodes consistent with strategies outlined in the plan's growth areas.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Hey, Mayor, we have a motion and a second,
And did our speakers not want to speak?
right?
Aye.
So, all those in favor?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Our final public hearing for today is a public hearing to consider an amendment to the UDO to amend section 7-14-1 that would allow existing non-conforming structures to be converted into accessory dwelling units without Board of Adjustment review. And our planning director, Stephanie Dahl, is here to present this.
Thank you for your time today, Mayor and Council, on this item. As noted, my name is Stephanie Munson-Dahl, and I'm the Planning and Urban Design Director. I'm going to start the presentation and just go over 2 definitions to help everyone level set and understand what an ADU is and what non-conforming means, people in the public especially, to follow along with us. Then I'm gonna stop and ask Sam Starbaum, our technical expert on Board of Adjustment and ADU, to come up and talk about a section of the appendix for the redlined ordinance change and discuss how this should be read. So thanks again. So to be clear, an accessory dwelling unit, or what we call ADUs, that's just jargon, for a smaller independent/accessory residential unit located on the same lot as a single-family home. When an accessory dwelling unit it can be attached to the house, it can be underneath the house as part of the basement. Most people think of them as being detached from the house. So they're usually, in the case of non-conforming structures, always looked at as converted portions of existing homes or garages, sheds. And I just want to be clear that today we are just talking about those types of conversions and not talking about new accessory dwelling units. Can also clarify that accessory dwelling units have been a legal part of our ordinances for over 10 years. They are allowed in all residential zoning districts automatically. And the issue that we're talking about today is just that owners of non-conforming structures have to seek a variance at the Board of Adjustment. So you can see in this diagram that the existing structure was probably built before our current ordinances or regulations. It was built at a time when we had a narrower, say, side yard setback, and part of that, let's just say it's a garage, has a shed on it that encroaches into that area. So these are not illegal homes. It is not illegal for you to be occupying any structures like this. We just needed a technical term in the planning profession to discuss what the difference between these homes and newer homes that follow current ordinances, and that word is non-conforming. So if you had this 525 square foot garden shed in your yard and it didn't encroach into that side yard setback, you could, and you lived in a residential zoning district, you could go and get a permit and convert that into an accessory dwelling unit on your legally. And if you have an encroachment into a setback or have other dimensional nonconformities, you have to spend money, go to the Board of Adjustment, have a multi-month period to go through that quasi-judicial process. And then usually, and this is really important, they're almost always granted. And what I want to underscore for the public is that when someone owns a non-conforming home, they did not create that hardship, right? So the Board of Variance is looking at whether or not you exacerbated the issue. You didn't build that home in 1925, somebody else did. They had no idea that 90 years later we were going to change the side yard setbacks. So that's non-conforming structure. So let's now talk a little bit, I'm going to bring up Sam Starbaum, urban planner, about the appendix and this graph and why, what it's actually showing.
Yes, thank you, Director Dahl. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Again, for the record, my name is Sam Starbaum. I am a Planner 3. And actually, more importantly for this discussion, I am the Board of Adjustments liaison and somewhat of a technical expert. When we talk about staff time and bringing this to the Board of Adjustment, we're talking about my time. So that's what's really on the agenda today. So with that, Steph is of course wise to talk about what this amendment is and what this amendment is not. This amendment is not changing or altering in any way the maximum allowable structure size for accessory dwelling units. What we have heard from the development community under our current UDO is that it is awkward and a little hard to read for what your maximum structure size is. We allow 800 square feet for an ADU if that is one structure on a parcel less than 1 acre. And then you are allowed 1,000 square feet of all structures, so you have an additional 200 for smaller structures if you are on a parcel less than 1 acre. That number changes and you have to sit there on your computer screen and do the X and the Y axis and figure out what this is. This, what you see on that red line document, which isn't showing well, is just simply finding a way to reframe that information so it is easier for the development community and your average person who is not a contractor, who is just simply looking to turn an existing non-conforming structure into an ADU, to make that a little easier to read. So there is no increase, there is nothing more, nothing is changing about structure sizes. It's staying the same, we're just changing the way that information presents to make our UDO a little more accessible.
So, question, as we
Mhm.
currently stand.
Yes.
With a property that is an acre, you can do,
Less than an acre or at an acre?
you tell me, I'm going with an acre because I was headed to, I could do something that is 800 and then like a little shed for 200 to get me to 1,000.
So that would be less than an acre. That
Less
is
than an
correct.
acre. But if I'm 1.1,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
the way it is
1.01.
now,
Yep.
1.01, I can go 1,000 plus something?
Yes, that is correct. So an acre is 43,560 square feet. That's some
Okay.
great bar trivia for you. If
Okay.
you are at 43,561, you are then in that next category, which is 1 to 3 acres, and your structure is allowed for that larger structure to be 1,200 square feet. That
So
is the
again-
case under the current UDO, and again, nothing is changing.
So again, to be clear, what is before us today to vote on is in no way changing the permissible square footage. It's just to deal with irregularities or exceedances of the current setbacks.
That is correct, and I want to talk about what the board has seen so far. There have been 17 cases in the last 26 months, I believe it is. I forget when it is and when we scheduled this, but less than 3 years. Of these cases, the median size is 449 square feet. These are the smaller things that are built between 1919 and 1953, well before zoning ordinances that individuals are looking to convert into housing for kids, for parents, for things like that.
And to beat a dead horse.
Yeah.
I know maybe like in 2024, there was a discussion about increasing from 800 square feet to maybe 1,000 square feet. This has nothing to do with that.
Nope.
Okay.
This is keeping it exactly as it is, just making the information more legible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. And as we've noted, this amendment is to allow owners of existing yet non-conforming structures to have those same right to turn them into accessory dwelling units without having to first apply for and receive a variance at the quasi-judicial Board of Adjustment. While we were seeing this as administrative cleanup, a housekeeping, a streamlining amendment, we do think that there's another really important context in this, and that our community consistently and council consistently prioritizes the need to have more affordable housing, the need to have more accessible housing. So in this slide, we are just taking a look at the housing needs assessment, which you may know better as the Bowen report from last year, and taking a look at the countywide gap of housing units we have right now. Staff and many of the community members and policy analysts across the country consistently see ADUs is a very small yet effective way to allow existing property owners to create wealth and also add additional units to a community's housing stock. So benefits for this amendment, that it would remove a barrier to our community's use of existing neighborhood structures to create new housing units, promotes the creation of those smaller units, and smaller units can be the most affordable or attainable units for community members. It simplifies the pathway for residential property owners with limited access to capital to create more wealth via home ownership. Many of our community members have that kind of home renovation skill and would have a better chance of renovating something that's existing on their parcel than being able to access capital and create an entirely new structure. This supports existing residents being able to age in place or take care of family or friends that are in need. And from an administrative perspective, we do note, and I want to thank the Board of Adjustment here, they are diligent in their jobs, they do very well, but they are volunteers, and it's a quasi-judicial process. There are many staff hours that are spent hearing cases, and almost 50% of the cases that have been heard are because of this requirement. So the community, we talked to them several times because this amendment has been through Planning and Zoning Commission at 2 separate times. And in this most recent time, last September, we held 2 online virtual information sessions and 1 in-person session. And we, of course, took public comment at Planning and Zoning Commission, had a lot of discussions one-on-one with people. And these were the primary concerns. People were concerned that these would be turned into short-term vacation rentals. Just as a reminder, short-term vacation rentals are only allowed in our resort zoning. We have a homestay ordinance, and the homestay ordinance requires that the homeowner be on site. So this is short-term vacation rental is just not an allowable use. We were asked about the data that we have for this kind of development. We developed maps. We shared those map and GIS viewers with members of the community. People do have parking concerns, which we hear about. That's a common concern with any residential development. There were concerns about notification. I want to be clear that we do have some good notification standards for higher levels of development, and we are going to be taking in the next couple of months a better look at how we notify neighbors about development that's happening in their community. That's by right, and what we're talking about here is the by right kind of development. There is a concern, especially that perhaps in legacy neighborhoods, the more perhaps senior neighbors may feel more vulnerable to predatory investors who see this as an opportunity to gain rental income by having an accessory structure in their portfolio. We understand that concern, and that is part of a larger concern that needs to be discussed at length, which is around cultural, social, economic, and environmental displacement. We're having those conversations, as you know, with the legacy neighborhoods right now, finding a path forward, which is really exciting for working with them over the coming 2 years on a variety of initiatives that will help make displacement less of a threat in those vulnerable areas. And then there is just general concern about how the city supports the overall vision for specific neighborhoods, of course. So we noted that this was seen twice at the Planning Zoning Commission, once in May 2024 as part of a larger batch of backyard housing amendments, and then again in September 2025, when we had winnowed this down to become more about a process change and less about a change in allowable sizes or dimensions. And during that Planning and Zoning Commission discussion, there were some questions about whether or not it was appropriate for them to recommend adoption of this ordinance without having a specific anti-displacement strategy attached to it or in play at some level. There was some confusion about whether or not council wanted to see any proposed amendments at this time, and they're talking specifically about amendments to the UDO in light of staff making plans to do an overhaul of the Unified Development Ordinance starting later this coming year. So they eventually made a recommendation. There was a motion made, and it passed with one negative vote to recommend adoption using Appendix 7F. We'll probably have a conversation here if you have questions around that. But our legal staff recommends against using Appendix 7F for this amendment, in addition to there being some problematic issues with the use of 7F overall, in particular because this is a process change. Brad will have more to say about why that presents additional risks to the city. Staff is making a recommendation that the adoption of this amendment is as is presented. This aligns very well with our comprehensive plan, the missing middle study, and the displacement analysis that was a part of that study, and the affordable housing plan. Every one of those plans underscores and stresses that this is one small way we can ease up on the housing crisis in our community. So we have a recommended motion for you, and we do have staff, of course, here to answer any technical questions, and I appreciate your time tonight.
Questions question going back to, I've noticed a couple times staff are putting these slides that say, here are the community concerns and here are the questions. Love it. That's very great distillation. The one around where would new residents park? You just talked about that a little bit. If someone does an ADU, are there parking requirements associated with it? Parking minimums?
So I believe that there is no additional parking requirement for an ADU. Yes. Is that correct?
No, there is one 9x18 space required for an accessory dwelling unit.
So there is a parking requirement.
Yeah.
Okay. Would love to put that on the list to revisit.
So wait, if it's already one that's there, how is that changing from what we currently require?
That is,
Yeah, please.
gonna get real cozy in here. So there are setback standards. What the variance is for the structure to be within that ADU setback, which is 6 off the side and 6 off the rear. That is the only thing. It still has to meet all these other standards, right? It has to meet height, it has to have that parking. If you need anything larger, if you cannot park it, then that's also a variance. But what we're finding is that these are smaller and they're just 3 feet off the line, they're 2 feet off the line, and they can find another way to add parking to an existing driveway. But there is, what this is for the siting of the structure more than anything.
It's really helpful. Yeah, I think, I mean, I literally have a building, like a ramshackle garage with plywood walls that's in the 6-foot setback, and we have looked at, I'm taking care of 2 aging parents, and that the time and uncertainty of the process has played into us just not taking any steps on it. And I think this question is important too, because that's also a barrier, right? I mean, one of the thresholds here is an acre lot. Does anyone know how many acre lots are even in the city anymore? My guess is that this structure of regulation on ADU has a lot of other things that need to be modernized. I respect that we're pursuing a process to make sure that we don't race towards our housing supply goals while displacing folks. And I think that my sense is we're at a really, we're making some progress as a council and as a community to really get serious about what the anti-displacement things we can do, and I'm very excited about that. And I still remain extremely excited to look at our zoning regulation to modernize it so that even now, requiring a new parking space could limit this for a lot of people. That's a lot of space. You know, what if you have a gravel lot? Anyhow. So thanks for the clarification. I still have ambition to get back to this once we get on a firmer, more clear, committed track to our anti-displacement work, which I feel like we're closer to now than ever.
And what do you say to folks who, actually I've gotten a text message saying, what does this mean as far as the potential for Airbnbs?
So to be clear, we heard that question quite a bit, and I think it's part of a larger overall concern that we've had here for probably 10 or 15 years now about the prevalence of residential homes being converted into Airbnbs. And that is why the city has some pretty tidy standards around Airbnbs. Those are what we call short-term vacation rentals. We don't allow these to be turned into short-term vacation rentals. We do have an option for people who have extra bedrooms in their homes. It has to be connected to your home. You have to live there to be able to run a homestay. And that is very, very different than a whole house or even a whole ADU short-term vacation rental. We also have enforcement.
Which aren't allowed. I mean,
They are not, to be very clear, they're not allowed. Yeah, so, and we understand, right, they're only allowed in one zoning district, right? And that's a resort, and that's the same zoning district, like, that's not happening in our, community.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions?
Well, it's not allowed is different than it's not happening, right?
And that's why we understand that it's a community concern, and we have those tidy regulations that are responding to concerns and enforcement in place.
I mean, just to say this very clearly, we don't allow whole house or whole unit.
We do not allow
short-term
it.
rentals in the city of Asheville in residential neighborhoods. The only exception is a homestay, which is up to 2 bedrooms in your own home that you can rent out. And I see people nodding behind me. So just to make it, I don't know how tidy our rules and regulations are, but they're pretty clear that you cannot use an ADU as a short-term rental.
Yeah, and by tidy, I mean they're clear and they've been worked on over and over again over the years to make sure that they are crystal clear. And staff does understand that even though they may not be allowed, that surely some people are illegally running Airbnbs. That's a different conversation, but I understand the concern.
And I know we don't really like to play in hypotheticals, and this may be more of a Brad question, but let's say one of these somebody did this, they turned it into an Airbnb, what does the process look like to figure that out and then the enforcement to get that back on track?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councilmember Hess. As has already been said, and I think it bears repeating, the city does not currently allow any new, what this would be is a whole home rental. It's obviously a small home, but it could be somebody's home. You would not be able to utilize this for a short-term rental under our existing rules. If someone were to try to circumvent those rules and utilize the property as a short-term rental, that is something that the city has a code enforcement staff. We have individuals who are monitoring online websites to check for listings that are not authorized. We also certainly accept complaints from the public. So if people see a situation they feel is violating those rules, just like any other zoning violation, we would ask those to be reported to the city. And we will investigate those. If determined to be in violation, we do issue fines. And we will seek additional legal recourse when people do not willingly come into compliance.
I have a curiosity then, because we know there were some specific examples where these come to Board of Adjustment. And so we have a list of these addresses. If they no longer have to go to Board of Adjustment, then they're allowed as use by right. Would we still have a way to track whether or not they were even, in fact, used for short-term rentals?
So the way that we track these now is
Right.
by monitoring the listing websites. There's
But
primarily.
also you have to get a building
Permitting.
permit.
You
And we
do.
track who gets a building permit
That's
for
right.
ADUs.
That's right. There are some limitations now that have been imposed throughout North Carolina on what would be the traditional tracking mechanisms for these sorts of things. But we are primarily using our review of online listing websites, which does a very good job about telling us who is actually listing their properties and where. It is not perfect, and we are constantly looking to improve those efforts. We do, as I said, accept complaints externally, but we're trying to monitor those not at our own level of people having been licensed through the city, but by the listings that they actually put online.
Okay, I appreciate there's a permitting process, we do have an enforcement problem.
I move to recommend approval of the proposed text amendment.
Let's do the, real quick, we've got two people signed up to speak under the public hearing, and then we'll do the motion. The first, and I think everybody knows, but you have up to 3 minutes. The first person signed up to speak is Matt Allen.
Good morning. Good morning. It's weird to say good morning up here, but my name is Matt Allen. I work at the local Board of Realtors, and I'm here today to follow up on my more lengthy written comment that I sent you all last week and ask that you approve this proposed amendment as it was originally proposed without the inclusion of 7F. There are several reasons why this amendment should be extended to as many areas of the city as possible, as it touches on and is supported by numerous affordable housing goals, strategies, and recommendations outlined in the city's affordable housing plan and the missing middle housing, or MMH, study. Starting with the MMH study, section 7.3 includes several zoning recommendations, including those to update zoning standards instead of requiring more process, and to allow a wider range of housing options through by right review. The originally proposed amendment is more consistent with these recommendations since it did not render thousands of parcels in the city ineligible to convert an existing non-conforming structure to an ADU without a variance. The MMH study also specifically recommends to allow ADUs more broadly, and so again, disallowing several thousand parcels from these changes certainly would not be consistent with that recommendation. The ADU amendment, as originally proposed, is also consistent with Goal 3 in the city's affordable housing plan, which addresses increasing the supply of housing that meets the diverse needs of current and future residents. And if you specifically look at strategy 3.1, that's particularly relevant because it talks about increasing by right development of ADUs. Also, if you look at 3.2, that talks about reducing regulatory barriers citywide. And 3.5 of the plan talks about supporting other plans and policy initiatives that diversify housing choices. So just in closing, instead of excluding certain areas based on anti-displacement concerns, the city could instead create neighborhood outreach and education programs on the ADU amendment, including its benefits to homeowners and steps and guidance on conversion. In addition, this may be longer down the road, but the MMH study talked about an ADU affordable loan program, so that could make things more financially feasible for more families. So thank you for your time and consideration today. I'll just reiterate, I really think we need to start to chip away at this, especially if, as we look at UDO reform, things are going to be paused. This can be a very positive change that we can make sooner rather than later to help chip away at our housing shortage. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Rebecca Chapman.
Have we hit afternoon yet? I think we
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Or more importantly, lunchtime.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, City Manager, and staff. My name is Rebecca Chaplin, and I am the Associate State Director for Outreach and Advocacy with AARP North Carolina. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today to support the proposed text amendment. AARP strongly supports policies that expand housing options. This is consistent with other reports and presentations given, particularly those that help older adults remain safely and affordably in their communities. As a region prepares for continued growth, the data clearly show that we must act now to ensure that aging in place is a viable option. And we've heard a little bit about the Bowen report, but we know that the Bowen report indicated that people 75 years and older are going to grow by 20% in the next 5 years, that population. At the same time, older adults live on incomes below $25,000, many older adults, making the affordable housing an urgent concern. As we all know, nearly 20,000 homes were damaged by Tropical Storm Helene, with the vast majority being owner-occupied, likely affecting thousands of older adults who rely on stable housing to age in place. AARP recently convened a community conversation on aging in place where residents of all ages, especially older adults, shared their hopes and concerns. Participants emphasized the need for safe and stable neighborhoods, supportive social networks, and housing options that allow them to remain close to family, friends, and services. They also expressed some anxiety, which is no surprise, about overcrowding, investor-driven development, impacts on parking and infrastructure, and the potential for rising property taxes. These concerns are precisely why AARP supports not only this text amendment, but also continued transparency for residents about how these zoning changes will affect taxes, density, and parking, neighborhood character, and long-term affordability. This clear, accessible communication, and Matt mentioned the outreach and education, so this is consistent with that idea, would help to build the trust that would help ensure that community members understand both the benefits and trade-off of the policy changes. So we believe that this text amendment, paired with ongoing transparency and community engagement, will help create the range of housing options that our older population needs. That includes the smaller units, appropriately scaled density, and neighborhood-compatible development that supports intergenerational living, caregiver arrangements, and financial stability for older homeowners. Finally, our community feedback underscored a simple truth. Aging in place is not just about staying in your home. It's about staying connected and supported. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, that concludes the public comment under this item. So, Councilwoman Smith, ready for your motion?
I recommend the approval of the proposed text amendment to Chapter 7 of the Asheville Code of Ordinances and find that the proposed amendment is reasonable in the public interest, consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and meet the development needs of our community, and that the amendment will encourage responsible growth by standardizing and clarifying the process for all residential property owners to create backyard ADUs through by right adaptive reuse, using existing building inventory for infill development and aging in place and improving government efficiency.
Second.
Maggie, you pick. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. All right, we have one item of new business today, and that is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute all contracts, grants, and loan agreements after approval by the city attorney with the designated agencies for the 2025-2026 Home Investment Partnership Program, and authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with the selected home subrecipients. And Kaylee Pulliam is making her debut, I think, right?
Yes.
Here at City Council. All right, welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kaylee Poyum. I'm a community development analyst here at the city, and I'm going to present to you our 2025 home funding recommendations. Starting with a quick overview, the City of Asheville operates as the participating jurisdiction, and we receive an annual allocation of home funds from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. The home funds are a little unique in the sense that these funds are intended to be used throughout the consortium. The consortium consists of Buncombe, Henderson, Transylvania, and Madison County. In June 2025, the Asheville Regional Housing Consortium recommended and with City Council approval that the funding strategy for the 2025 home grant. The city undertook an application process to select our subrecipients from November 10th to December 10th. We had a total of 9 applicants for our 3 different program types. Staff are requesting approval and authorization to enter into these funding recommendations with the consortium's unanimous recommended subrecipient partners. So going into the home funding recommendations a little more, we had 3 different program types. We had tenant-based rental assistance with a funding allocation of $300,000. Down payment assistance with $400,000, and homeowner rehabilitation a little over $587,000. Like I said earlier, the city undertook an application process to select these subrecipients from November 10th through December 10th. The Asheville Regional Housing Consortium Funding Committee convened on January 7th and made the following award recommendations that were later approved unanimously by the Asheville Regional Housing Consortium on January 14th, 2026. So starting with our tenant-based rental assistance program, the Asheville Regional Housing Consortium is making the recommendation to award Helpmate $170,000, the Housing Authority of the City of Asheville $75,000, and the ARC of Buncombe County $55,000. I want to highlight that this is 100% of our total award of $300,000. Moving into our down payment assistance, we're recommending that Henderson County Habitat for Humanity receive their requested award amount of $200,000. And again, just to highlight that does leave an additional $200,000 that will be used for future awards. Finally, we have our homeowner rehabilitation program. We had 2 applicants for this one as well. We're bringing forward the recommendation to award the Community Housing Coalition of Madison County $200,000 and the Housing Assistance Corporation $204,000. Again, highlighting that does leave $183,000 to go into future awards. So just to recap, these are all of our award recommendations, and I'd also like to highlight our CHOTO set aside, our funding that's going to roll into our 2026. So with these recommendations, we will have a little over $430,000 that will go into our 2026 and 2027 award program. And I'd also like to note that the Asheville Regional Housing Consortium did vote unanimously at our last meeting to have that $436,000 support a new multifamily housing construction within the consortium area. So again, just to go back to the key takeaways, the city of Asheville receives this annual allocation of home investment partnership programs from HUD. We decided on our 3 program types with support of City Council and the Asheville Regional Housing Consortium. These funds will support projects throughout the consortium. And staff are requesting approval and authorization into entering funding agreements with the consortium's unanimous recommendation subrecipient partners. Any questions?
You ready for a motion, Mayor?
I am ready for, thank you very much. We're ready for a motion.
I move to authorize the city manager.
Wait, whoa.
Oh, sorry.
So I didn't realize helpmate, because I thought that was a shelter for folks who were struggling with domestic violence. And I know some of our other partners like Eblin Charities and Grace Covenant do rental assistance.
Do you want to know what Helpmate's going to use this money for?
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
give us a little more description about what Helpmate is? And they do more than that, but go ahead.
Yeah, so Helpmate is one of our reoccurring partners. They provide tenant-based rental assistance for domestic violence survivors. So these funds go to support the rent and also the security deposits for these families to get into their apartments.
So they're not just in the shelter anymore, they're relocating to housing.
Like after they're in the shelter and they need to get their next step, this gives a subsidy so that their next step is
And they have to qualify
shorter
for
to
the-
reach.
Got it.
We're actually a major partner with the Housing Authority too, as well, to have placement of individuals and families in housing.
Okay,
Good question.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, where were we? Yes.
I move to authorize the city manager to execute all contracts, grants, and loan agreements after approval by the city attorney with the designated agencies for the 2025 through 2026 Home Investment Partnership Program.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Okay, that concludes our printed agenda. Thank you, everyone. We do have a few people signed up to speak under general public comment. Again, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Please just watch the lights on the lectern. The first is Chandra Russell.
Hello, my name is Chandra Russell. 12 years ago, I moved here because I wanted to live in a city that valued the weirdos, the artists, the counterculture. And I've watched it become more sanitized, a watered-down version, more palatable for the rich people who are only here a few months of the year, and the remote workers with inflated salaries from companies based in San Francisco, New York, or Dubai. The ABL 5x5 city plan hollows out the soul of our city because it's a cookie-cutter template consultants are using all over the world to align with Agenda 2030. Some of the ways it hollows us out include stealing our story and repackaging our pain from Helene into marketing copy for investors, the public-private partnership trap, the self-sustaining consultant loop, and perhaps the most troubling, dehumanization through global militarization. We are seeing the impacts right now in Minneapolis with ICE killing 2 American citizens this month, Alex Preddy and Renee Good. I personally have experienced police brutality 4 times in the last 8 months under your corrupt police department. No history, no crimes, no charges sticking. The day after being arrested for a minor car accident, I was drugged from my house in my shower, across my yard, across my street, hosed down like a dog, dumped at the hospital, released 2 hours later, barefoot, in a hospital gown, no money, no shoes, disoriented, and predictably arrested again on my way home, trying to make my way home. And what happens inside? Human rights violations. Last council meeting, Chief Stepp cited a 15% increase in proactivity, which includes, in her words, stopping vehicles, crime prevention, checking out suspicious persons, more foot patrol, and cops. But I ask, how is that any different than ICE's agenda? These ancient Blue Ridge Mountains are screaming. We demand you investigate your corrupt police department and put a moratorium on moving forward with the AVL 5x5 city plan until the copy-paste fraudulent practices of the consultants can be investigated and more public input can be gathered. In November, you all received my 70-page analysis of the city plan. I have a rematrated alternative, the Wampus City Plan for Abundance.
Thank you.
This is also available to the public at riseofwampus.org.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chris Sherbert. Last call for Chris Sherbert. Okay. Dee Williams.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, and fellow citizens that remain here. I just want to speak about the CDBG DR Business and Economic Development Grant. We all want Helene recovery dollars to reach the residents and businesses most impacted quickly and equitably and with measurable outcomes. My focus is on strengthening the county city ecosystem so micro enterprises, minority-owned firms, and low to moderate income communities can fully participate in recovery as the funds were designated. CDBG-DR Economic Revitalization Funds represent a once-in-a-generation opportunity to correct long-standing disparities in access to capital, technical assistance, and contracting. If you haven't already studied the Cease the Harm audit, I implore you to do so, as some of the systems and organizations that you funded have failed mightily in our community, and there is data to back that up. Most of them are without data, evaluation, and outreach infrastructure needed to ensure equitable outcomes. If we don't intentionally design for equity, the same firms that were left behind before Helene will be left behind again. There's an outreach gap because many micro enterprises and minority-owned firms are unaware of available opportunities of program, and they lack capacity to navigate. There is also a very wide technical assistance gap because firms need hands-on support with procurement, financials, compliance, and disaster documentation. Our firm was the first nonprofit that got a city contract or initiated a city contract with an African-American owned firm, and also packaged the first SBA direct and guarantee loans in Western North Carolina. There is also a data gap. The city and county lack disaggregated data on who is being served and whether outcomes are equitable. There is a capacity gap. Black-owned firms are underrepresented in construction, professional services, and other high-value sectors, mostly low-level service sectors that are mom and pop and not scalable. There's a coordination gap. Multiple partners are working in parallel, in silos, but not always in alignment. What we can provide, some of us that are with nonprofits, we bring trusted relationships, cultural competence, and deep community outreach. We can support intake, case management, technical assistance, and navigation to capital and contracting opportunities. We help the county and city meet CDBG DR requirements for low to moderate income benefit, tieback, and equitable access. If you would, when you design, would you prioritize micro enterprise and minority-owned firms in scoring, rubrics, and outreach? Ensure nonprofit sub-recipients are eligible. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all you do.
Okay, that concludes our public comment and our meeting for today. We are adjourned. Thank you.